Philippians 1:21 through 24 says, "For me to live is Christ, and to die is gain. But I am to live on the flesh. This will be fruitful of labor for me, and I do not know which to choose. But I am hard pressed from both directions, having a desire to depart and be with Christ, for that is very much better. And yet to remain on the flesh is much more necessary for your sake." Well, if you're joining us in reading through this 90-day reading plan, today's reading is Philippians 1:12 through 30, and I encourage you to read that passage. One dilemma that we face as believers is our desire to be with God and our desire to be here around friends and family. This tugs at our hearts, and do we prefer to serve God or do we prefer to be with God? Well, as Paul points out in the rest of this passage, this dilemma should not exist. If we are focusing on doing God's will, then we will be satisfied in whichever position we find ourselves. And this is summed up in verse 21 where he writes, "For me to live is Christ and to die is to gain." And that should be our attitude as well. We are to be satisfied in life, and we're to be presenting Christ to the world, and we're to be satisfied in death because we are with Christ. But let's concentrate for a few moments on the living part. Our lives are going to be stressful, and even if you leave out what God would have you to do, in some ways this may be particularly true if you leave out Christ, our lives will be full of busyness, joy, and pain. I remember when I first began college, I was 27 years old, married, had one child. My first semester I took 12 hours and I worked, and I was so busy I didn't think I could see straight. But I found something out that as I stayed with me the rest of my life, I am only as busy as I make time for. One semester I took 22 hours. I worked a 40-hour week, taught Sunday school, and once a month spent a weekend at Fort Sill, Oklahoma, ministering to Army personnel. To say that I was busy would be an understatement, but I got everything done, and it was done well, and I was satisfied. Well, we need to look to Christ to supply our strength, and we need to recognize that we are going to work. We can look forward to spending eternity with Christ, but right now we have a job to do.